Welcome back, sleepyhead. Or maybe it's your first time here. Either way, I'm glad you've arrived. Tell me what's your favorite way to unwind before bed. Write it below while the rain begins to fall. And if you'd like me to read to you again, just subscribe. I'll be here every night. Now, let's begin our little ritual. It started with the light in apartment 5C. It turned on every night at exactly 3 p.m. Not 7, 0, not 7, 5, always 7, 3. At first I noticed it only because it was directly across from my own window, a few floors up and to the right. There was nothing special about it. Just a warm amber glow that filled the room for exactly 2 hours and 57 minutes before going dark at 10, 0 on the dot, every night, without fail. I didn't know who lived there. The curtains were always drawn halfway, enough to suggest presence, but never enough to reveal detail. No shadows, no silhouettes, just the light, steady and deliberate, like someone was saying, I'm still here, even if no one was watching. I never saw anyone enter or leave that apartment, never passed them in the hallway. But as the weeks went by, I began to feel their rhythm quietly blending into mine. My evenings began to sync with theirs. I'd finish dinner, wash the dishes slowly, and find myself glancing up at the clock around 7. Always curious if tonight would be different. It never was. That small golden square would come to life, soft and unwavering. It wasn't bright enough to light the street below, but it lit something in me, a kind of quiet expectation, a reason to pause. I began sitting by the window with a cup of tea, not to watch the light, but to be near it. Some evenings, I imagined the person inside reading, maybe, or writing letters they'd never send, or simply sitting in their own silence, steady, like the light they kept. I never told anyone. It felt too small, too soft to share. But it became part of my day, the most reliable part. Even on hard days, when everything felt slightly tilted, I could count on that quiet glow appearing exactly when it said it would. And every time it did, I whispered inwardly, there you are. I don't know if I meant them, or myself, or both. The light didn't come on that evening. I remember because I was already holding the mug of tea, already settled in my usual chair by the window, waiting more out of habit than need. 7, 2 passed. Then 7, 3. And still, the window across from mine remained dark. I told myself not to read into it. People have lives. Maybe they were late. Maybe they went out for once. Maybe the bulb had burned out. But 7, 10 came and went. And by 7:30, I felt it not panic, not worry. Just a kind of hollow stillness, the absence of something small but certain. I watched the window longer than usual that night. I knew it was irrational. I didn't know this person, had never even seen their face. But I had come to rely on their quiet routine like a kind of anchor, and without it, the evening felt off balance. That night, I left my own light on a little longer, as if keeping the glow alive on both sides of the glass might somehow preserve the thread between us. At 10, 0, when their window usually faded to black, It remained as it had been all night, unlit, unreadable. The next morning I checked again. Nothing. Curtains still drawn halfway, still perfectly still, but no sign of presence. I watched again the following night. Nothing. And again, the night after that. Something inside me began to ache, not sharply, not urgently, just a soft tension, like a question with no one to ask it to. I wondered, quietly, what kind of person keeps a schedule so precise for so long, and what would make them stop? I realized I didn't miss the light itself. I missed what it meant. That someone, somewhere, was also moving quietly through their evening. That they, like me, had carved out a piece of the day to simply be, to hold space. And now that space was quiet in a different way. Emptier. Not dangerous, not tragic, just quiet. On the fourth night, I did something I hadn't done before. I turned my own lamp on at exactly 7:03. A small gesture, a quiet offering. I didn't expect anything, but it felt right, like answering a call that might never have been made, just in case someone, somewhere, needed to know they were still seen. I sat beside the window again, not to wait, not even to hope, just to keep the light going a little while longer, just in case. On the fifth night, something changed. I had almost stopped expecting anything. I still turned on my own lamp at 7 hours and 3 minutes in the evening. A quiet echo of what used to be. The tea sat in its usual spot, the mug warming my palms more than my throat. Outside, the evening moved slowly clouded, still, the kind of soft gray light that makes windows feel like mirrors. And then I saw it. Not the full glow, not the warm amber light that once filled the room across from mine, but a shift, a flicker. The faintest glow in the far corner of their window, something dim, something hesitant. Not enough to say I'm here, but enough to whisper I might be. My breath caught without my realizing. I leaned forward slightly. Not enough to press my face to the glass, just enough to make sure it wasn't reflection or wishful thinking, but it was real. A small, subdued light, no bigger than the glow of a candle, cast gently along the bottom edge of the curtain, and then, just as gently, it faded, gone within a minute. No movement, no sound, just a trace of presence. I didn't know what to make of it. It didn't feel like a mistake. It felt intentional, like someone adjusting the volume of their presence, not wanting to be seen, but not ready to disappear either. I stayed by the window longer than usual that night, not hoping for more, but holding space for what had been offered. A soft question had been placed between our windows, and I didn't need an answer. I just needed to show I had noticed. The next evening, I lit my own lamp again, a few minutes early this time, and beneath it, I placed something small, a piece of paper, blank except for one line written slowly and with care. "Are you still there?" I didn't tape it to the window. I didn't hold it up. I just let it sit on the inside sill, gently visible if someone happened to be looking back. I left it there for several nights. No response came. But the following week, I noticed the curtains in 5C had shifted slightly, only by an inch or two, but enough to reveal the edge of a bookshelf, and on it, barely visible, a shape I recognized The same warm-colored lamp that used to light the whole room, now sitting dormant, as if waiting. And something about that small stillness, that patient, intentional pause, felt more alive than anything else I'd seen in weeks. I didn't know who they were. I didn't need to. I just whispered, more to the air than to the glass. It's okay. I'm still here too. The paper sat on my windowsill for 6 days. I didn't move it. I didn't write anything else. I just let it be a quiet question, suspended between two lives. I didn't expect a reply. I wasn't even sure it could be seen. But on the 7th evening, something appeared. Not in the window, not in the bookshelf corner, but on the glass itself, the one thing they'd never touched before. As the light faded from the street, I noticed a faint shape. At first, I thought it was dust or condensation, the way windows blur and shift with the change in air. But when I looked closer, I saw it. A small drawing traced onto the inside of their window pane. Just a finger sketch, barely there, like someone had used the warmth of their hand to leave a message before it vanished. It was a circle, uneven, but whole, like a sun or a light seen through mist. It wasn't much, but I felt it like a hand resting gently on my shoulder. Not loud, not dramatic, just presence. Just yes. I didn't react, not visibly. I kept sipping my tea, kept my body still. But inside, something softened. I left my light on longer that night. I let it spill across the floor and onto the page I hadn't moved, letting it glow just slightly, as if to say, I saw you. The next day, I cleaned my own window, not out of restlessness, but out of preparation. A gesture, a readiness. And that evening, when the light turned soft and the city exhaled its noise, I drew a circle on my own glass, not matching theirs. Just similar enough to say, I understand. Then I left the lamp on and walked away from the window for the first time in weeks. Not because I had given up, but because I finally trusted that the silence was mutual. That presence didn't require watching every moment. That noticing had become shared. I returned an hour later. The light in 5C was on again, not full, not like before, just a soft amber halo behind the curtain. And next to the first shape on the window, a second one, a crescent tucked inside the original circle, like someone saying, I'm not all the way here, but I'm not all the way gone either. That night, I sat without tea, without note, just stillness. I didn't feel like I needed anything explained, because sometimes the smallest gestures, the fogged circles, the shifts in light, the way a curtain breathes open just slightly are more than enough to say, I see you. I still do. Days passed, then weeks. The light in apartment 5C didn't return to its old rhythm. It no longer appeared at exactly 7 hours and 3 minutes in the evening, nor did it fade precisely at 10, but it came on, gently, without pattern, sometimes at dusk, sometimes closer to night, sometimes not at all, and strangely, that felt more real, more human. I stopped watching the clock. I stopped measuring presence by minutes, and instead let it find me naturally, like noticing a familiar scent on a jacket you haven't worn in a while. When the light was there, I felt it like breath. When it wasn't, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt trusted. The shapes on the windows began to shift, too. Faint new drawings would appear, not every night, not predictably, just occasionally. A star, a small square. Once, what looked like a single letter, maybe an S, or maybe a river, depending on how you looked. I responded the same way, slowly, quietly, not always with shapes. Sometimes I pressed my palm to the glass and left it there for a moment. Sometimes I lit a candle and let it flicker just behind the curtain. No words, no names, no stories. But we were speaking. I had stopped needing to know who they were. That question had dissolved into something softer, not disinterest, but peace. The not knowing had become part of the ritual, like leaving a note in a bottle without ever needing to watch it reach the shore. I found myself thinking about them in moments unrelated to the window, when I saw someone hold the door for a stranger, when the first leaf of autumn drifted onto my porch, when I stood in line behind someone humming softly to themselves. Those small, wordless kindnesses reminded me of 5C. I started believing the world might be full of people who leave traces like that, not for applause, not for reply, just to say I was here, and I noticed. My apartment felt different now. Not fuller, not brighter, just softer. Like it had become part of something wider, something connected, not through conversation, through quiet. And I realized I no longer waited for the light. I simply welcomed it whenever it came, as if we had become two lanterns in neighboring windows, not synchronized, but aware of each other's glow, each other's silence. That kind of awareness doesn't need to be loud to be lasting. It only needs to be real. It was a Tuesday when I noticed the sign on the front door of our building, a simple sheet of paper taped near the mailboxes. Unit 5C will be vacant as of the 1st. The words weren't startling. They were quiet, like everything about 5C had always been. But something in my chest paused, not stopped, just paused. I stood in front of the note longer than I should have, rereading the message that didn't say much. No name, no reason, just a statement of departure. I didn't know what I felt. Not sadness, not quiet. More like the recognition that something had run its course. Like watching a season end, not because you're ready, but because it's time. That night, I sat by the window earlier than usual. The page from weeks ago was gone from my sill. The circle on the glass had long faded, but I placed a candle near the edge anyway. I didn't light it. I just let it sit there. An offering, a memory. The light in 5C came on just after dusk. Not full. Just a gentle, low glow. As if someone had turned on the lamp but left the overhead off. It stayed for only an hour. And then, for the first time in weeks, the curtains shifted, all the way open. The room was still simple. A bookshelf, a chair, a jacket slung across the back of it. Nothing extraordinary. And then I saw them, just briefly. A figure standing at the edge of the window, hand resting gently on the sill. Not waving, not signaling, just standing, facing outward, toward me. It lasted only a moment. Then the curtains drew shut, the light turned off, and the window became just a window again. I stayed still, not needing anything more. That small presence had spoken everything it needed to. The next day, the apartment looked the same, and the day after. But on the third morning, I noticed the light fixture had been removed from the ceiling. The bookshelf was gone. The window stayed closed. But something had shifted in me again. Not a closing, but a turning. Like a chapter finishing its last sentence before the pages turned, not ripped. I lit the candle that evening, for the first time, let it flicker for a while. And when I blew it out, I whispered so gently, it almost wasn't sound, "Thank you for staying as long as you did." After the apartment emptied, I expected a kind of quiet to return, a silence like before, clean and blank, but it didn't feel that way. The window across from mine still caught the same light in the morning, still reflected the clouds just after rain, but now, every time I looked at it, I felt presence rather than absence. Something had happened there. Something had shifted me. And just because the person was gone didn't mean the rhythm they had left behind was too. I continued lighting the candle in the evenings. Not at 7 hours and 3 minutes anymore, just when it felt right. Sometimes I placed it on the windowsill, sometimes on the table, sometimes not at all. The act had changed. It was no longer a message to someone. It was a way of keeping something inside me alive. I found myself pausing more often in small moments. When the kettle sang, when I passed a stranger in the stairwell, when a breeze moved the curtain without warning. There was a gentleness in everything now, and I could feel it, like learning to listen to a softer frequency. I started noticing windows, not just 5C, but others, across the street, down the block. Little squares of life flickering on and off in rhythms no one else seemed to see. And I wondered, how many of us are quietly showing up, hoping someone notices, even if they never say it out loud? I didn't feel lonely. If anything, I felt more connected than I ever had. There's something powerful in realizing that a person can change you without ever saying a word, that they can enter and exit your life with nothing more than light and silence and leave behind something permanent. I hadn't seen their face. I never learned their name. But every time I lit the candle, or pressed my hand softly to the glass, or sat in the stillness without reaching for my phone, I felt them, not like a memory, like a shared space still breathing somewhere between our windows, even now. Maybe we never need to meet some people to carry them with us. Maybe presence is enough. Maybe it always was. Spring arrived quietly. The kind of spring that doesn't announce itself with color or bloom, but with longer evenings and softer air. I began walking more, not with purpose, just with rhythm. And one afternoon, passing a row of buildings I'd never really looked at before, I saw a window with the curtains half drawn. Inside, a lamp, off. But near the sill sat something familiar. A candle, unlit, alone. It felt like a mirror, or maybe a reminder that someone, somewhere, was sitting quietly in their own rhythm, waiting for nothing in particular, just being. I didn't pause long. I didn't need to. That night, back in my own apartment, I took the candle from the sill and tucked it away. Not because I was done, but because I was beginning again. I gathered a few things into a small bag, the candle, a piece of paper, a marker, nothing more. The next day, I walked to a different part of the city, a building I once passed years ago, where the top floor always caught the golden hour in a way that made everything look like memory. I climbed the steps slowly, found a quiet place, left the candle on the ledge. Next to it, I placed the paper. On it, one sentence. "It's okay. I saw you. I didn't stay. I didn't need to see who found it. Or if anyone ever would. That was never the point. What mattered was that I had been seen once by someone who never said a word. And that seeing had changed something in me. Now, it was my turn to hold the space, to keep the light, to start the silence again for someone else, not as a gift, not as a lesson, just as presence. I walked home slowly. The sun was setting behind the rooftops. All around me, windows blinked to life one by one at their own time. None of them at exactly 7 hours and 3 minutes. And yet, each one felt like a quiet echo of something I once knew, and maybe still did.